All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pod Talk EDU. And today we are joined by a distinguished professor from NLC. She's my colleague. And also, we are going to be starting the conversation talking about study abroad. She had an extensive experience regarding that. She has done a couple of stints and a couple of trips to England. So we will have a conversation regarding just study abroad general, and then also her own, documenting her own experience in that regard. Welcome aboard, Professor Angie.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So just get us started off by what inspired you to join this study abroad? Because a lot of times people on campus, they see study abroad thing and they feel like it's a very lofty proposition to many students. But obviously it is not. I mean, it's something that you can accomplish. So walk us through maybe the most recent trip that you have had, and then what kind of triggered this whole thing about study abroad.
Okay. Well, in the beginning, I was not really familiar with what study abroad entailed. When I went to university, I never looked into study abroad. And our former president, the first president at Northeast Lakeview College, Dr. Reno, always encouraged me, you should see about that. You should take part in that. It's really a good opportunity for faculty as well as students. And so, like you said, it seemed pretty lofty and kind of scary. And so I never looked into promoting a study abroad program. And several years ago, an adjunct faculty member, a part-time faculty member, approached me and said, "Do you want to team up? Should we look into doing study abroad?" And I said, "Well, sure, let's see about it." And the process is rigorous to propose a study abroad program and then get the students signed up to go. But once you do it, it's absolutely fantastic. So some of the parameters that they have through the Alamo colleges is that the faculty leader, there's always a set of faculty members. There's 2 faculty members for each trip. And whichever faculty member is the leader of the group needs to have been to the country before. So that is one stipulation. My partner the first year was in luck because I have traveled quite a little bit. And so England was one of the places that I had been to. So it made it eligible for us to choose for our study abroad program. And we really picked it for one reason, because there is no language barrier. So we thought that that would make things a little bit easier for our students and for us as faculty leaders in country.
Okay. Now let me just kind of feed off of that question. You mentioned that the pre-required thing is that somebody has been to that country before.
Mhm.
Is also the language? Is it a stipulation as well? Do you have to speak the language of the country you're traveling to, or not?
I don't know that they have an actual stipulation for that. To me, it would seem like common sense that it would be really good if the faculty leader at least could speak the country's language. But I do know that here at the Alamo colleges, many different countries are visited by students and faculty. And, this year I looked ahead and I see that there's even a group going to Africa. So I don't know if the faculty leaders always have command of that language. I don't
Yeah.
think it's a requirement. And as we know from traveling, probably as well, it is certainly possible to travel to a country where you don't speak the language and navigate just fine.
It
I
makes
was
it more
leery.
interesting for sure. It makes it
Yes,
yeah,
yes. I
yeah,
was I was leery to do that while being in charge of 10 students.
yeah, yes, absolutely. Now you did mention the fact that the country that you have to decide to go on. Is there a list of countries that are favorable destinations, or you can pretty much go outside the box and pick a country that has not had been on the list? Or is there a list?
There's not a list. I think the only thing that would cause potential problems is if a country is deemed unsafe to visit. So, of course, the international programs is always keeping a close eye on travel advisories. Right now is a good example of that. There would certainly be countries that it would not be recommended to travel to.
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
certainly because of liability, they would not allow us to take students there. But
Sure.
I think barring anything like that, pretty much any country is open as long as it's safe to go to.
Okay. Now let's kind of want you to walk us through how beneficial this could be to students. Meaning that when the students do take that trip, is it just for expanding their minds, or is it part of an academic class, or how is that possible, and how are we going to be able to, let's talk to students, what are the real tangible benefits for students to actually take such an endeavor?
Okay, great. So I think that really both of those things are in play in a study abroad program. So usually when I'm trying to entice students to go, I talk about first just the opportunity to travel to another country. It's really reasonably priced because we're going as a group. So really, if you want to see another country, someplace specific that you want to go to, this is one of the most economical ways to have that experience. So it is fun, it is eye-opening, it is awesome. But in addition to that, it is an academic endeavor. So I mentioned before that for every trip that the Alamo colleges provides, there will be 2 faculty leaders, and those 2 faculty leaders will be teaching a course. So all the students who are in the program will be going to another country. We stay there for about 2 weeks. We do lots of fun things and also some school things, but students will be completing 2 courses. So we usually do the trips during summer. So students will be enrolled in those 2 courses as summer courses. And so at the end of study abroad, they will have credits for 2 courses that figure into their degree plan. So really, students are advancing their program of study as they are getting this really awesome and fun experience as well.
And those 2 courses that they take during the summer, are they particular courses that they have to take, or is it like any 2 courses in the summer will do?
Okay,
How does
good
that work?
question. So yes, faculty, when we're proposing a program, we are obligated to choose which course will be taught. Each faculty member will do that. And we also have to build a case for why the country is significant to that course. For me, I teach English. And so when we picked England, obviously that's easy. I mean, Shakespeare alone makes the case.
Right.
My partner, who is the other faculty member who travels, will teach an education course. That education course is tailored specifically to students who want to go into the teaching profession. So students, while they're abroad, will take one English and one education course. We sort of set it up just like a regular online course. So the students will be submitting coursework, taking quizzes, doing all those things in Canvas, our learning management system. And so we will build the case, the faculty leaders will build the case for the country that we're going to and all the different excursions that we're going to do while we're in country. How do those things tie back to the student learning outcomes for the course? So for instance, when we go to England, as far as the education coursework goes, we have the opportunity to visit some schools and actually go and observe how school is conducted in London. And it is much different than the way we do things in America. And so that is clearly really awesome experience for anyone who wants to be a teacher themselves. They want to have their own classroom. So last year, we were able to visit a primary school, so sort of like an elementary school. We spent about half a day there going into the actual classrooms. We were able to sit in. They kind of set us up in groups of 2, pairs of 2, and we were able to go in and work with the students and listen to the instruction. And then we also went to like a high school, middle school, high school type of institution where we were able to kind of go from class to class and see how does the science teacher do things? How does the English teacher do things? And then in addition to just the classroom experience in London and talking to the students, they were very excited to have Americans. But we were also able to have some chats with like the principal of the school and the teachers to really talk to them about, what kind of certificate do you need to teach here? How is that different than America? And they had a lot of questions for us as well. So that was really, I think, something unexpected for the students. When you go to London, you expect you're going to go to Westminster Abbey, you're going to go to St. Paul's Cathedral. And we did do all of those things, but we were also able to do things like that. So the faculty who propose these programs really do a lot of work to make sure that the itinerary in country is both fun and exciting, but also really applicable to the courses that the students are taking.
Okay, so those activities that you mentioned, the academic and the non-academic, it has to be kind of a stipulation for the approval of the trip to be forward. You don't just go, we're going to go to England and we're going to figure things out when we get there. You actually have to have like a certain plan when we're meeting with the principal. when we're going to take that trip to, to whatever, any fun activities as well. So everything has to
Yes.
be predetermined and pre-approved prior, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we will, submit the original, like, kind of dream itinerary
Sure.
next to the syllabus and say, like, here's the assignment that will gauge this, here's the learning outcome, all of that kind of discussion, that sort of pedagogical discussion about the coursework and the value
Yeah,
of
like
this.
a learning outcome, like connected
Yes.
to a learning outcome. How come talking to this person or visiting that place is going to satisfy some kind of academic requirements regarding the course and the college at large?
Yes.
Okay.
And then, of course, money figures into it, right? All of these excursions cost money. And so you always want to try to build a study abroad experience that is going to be super memorable and fun and awesome, but also is economical enough. So sometimes the dream itinerary gets whittled away a little bit in efforts to make the program affordable for students. So for a student who's looking at going to study abroad, they will have just one cost, one number. They need to either earn scholarships or make payments to get to that program cost. But then after that, everything is covered. So all the airfare, the transportation, the housing, all of the excursions, everything's paid for. So when a student gets in country, all they have to worry about are the souvenirs they want to buy and their food costs. So that is really nice to kind of have everything taken care of that way. So the faculty do the work on the back end to find the most exciting and economical way to format this itinerary.
Okay. Now, I think it probably know the answer for this. Was going to go and make sure and ask that question anyway. Is it mandatory or required for the faculty who are traveling to be actually the actual teachers who are teaching those two courses?
Yes. So
Okay.
that is part of it. You get the opportunity to go. So, I mean, really study abroad is just about as fun for the faculty as it is for the students. I mean, what an opportunity, what an experience. But it's a lot of work. And then while in country, not only are we serving as chaperones, making sure everything's okay, and tour guides, but also serving as faculty members. So we are grading things and tutoring with students and answering questions. So students have, some free time obviously built in during their stay in the other country, during which they are expected to be working on coursework. So that creates a really interesting learning environment. Last summer, we were in London. Our apartments that we stayed at were in London, and we were in sort of student housing, really nice student housing, not like dorms, but they were really legit apartments. So we had, a kitchen table and a living room. And so it was really interesting. Sometimes a student would be maybe struggling with an assignment. Of course, for me, I teach English. So sometimes you get stuck when you're writing an essay. And I would have students who would say, like, hey, this morning before we take off to go see, Canterbury, can I come talk to you about my essay? And it'd be like, yeah, sure. Let me pour you a cup of coffee. We'll sit at the kitchen table and talk this over. So it was essentially like office hours, but just a really interesting way to get things done. And it builds really cool relationships.
Sure. Now, one thing about this as well is it always do students when you guys are travel together as a pack, obviously, and you stay in the same kind of housing facilities? Do students or faculty have time to kind of explore the city and the town and the country they are in by themselves? And there's a specific time for that, like for that. I mean, is that allowed?
Yes, it is. And so we always recommend the buddy system. So we try to tell students, like, don't go off by yourself. Now, sometimes there are, exceptions to that. Sometimes we have adult students who are totally able to go and have dinner by themselves or whatever they want to do. But we do build in time when students will have some free time to do homework, but also to do some exploring. So when we're in London, one way that we make the trip more economical is that instead of purchasing entrance fees to each of the places we want to go, we get this thing called the London Pass. And that's something that a lot of major cities have, even American cities. Like I went to San Francisco one time, I got the San Francisco Pass. And so it's like one price. We get the London Pass for 6 days. And so we make the most of that, our entrance fees to the big places that we want to go. But then during those 6 days, we always try to make sure that students have like at least one morning, one afternoon, one evening, so that they can use that London pass to go see things that they want to, that maybe aren't school things. For instance, last year when we had the London pass, I was looking through the hundreds of things that you can go see on this London pass. And we found like a brewery that we could go see. We didn't take the students there, but we went to check it out. We went to see Sigmund Freud's house. That really wasn't anything that connected directly to our coursework, but we made plans to go there. Some students tagged along with us if they wanted to. So there's ample opportunity for students to do, and faculty to do some exploring on their own.
Okay. Now, how far apart were the two different trips to England in your case? How many years were they? Was it a long time between?
Well, there were more years in between than I wanted there to be because of a pesky little thing called COVID. So the first year I went was 2018, and the world was like the world used to be.
Okay.
And then we promoted that trip every year. But, once COVID came around, it was like trips got canceled. Obviously, nobody's going anywhere during a global pandemic. So we had several years where we might think, okay, things are lessening up. We're going to be able to go this summer, and then it would get squashed again. And then after COVID, we tried to promote the program, but I think, naturally, people were scared to travel internationally on a flight like this. So we had a hard time drumming up interest and really just even having the okay to travel. So 2023 was the first time that we went again. So there were 5 years in between, but I say only because COVID really ruined our plans.
Yes. Okay. Now, how is there a minimum a number of students to be enrolled to make the trip?
Yes.
Kind of class has to make, you have to have a certain number of students. How many is the minimum number?
Well, and so I think it kind of depends on the itinerary in the country and the price. So that number really comes down to the cost of going. Obviously, the more students who go, the cheaper the cost is for everyone, right? Because there are shared expenses and things like that. So usually they say we want to have a group of no less than 10. So that's usually about how many students you have. Sometimes groups are a little bit bigger. The England groups we've had have always been around 10 students, but there are students, there are other programs. I think there was a program that went to Japan and there were like maybe 20 students. So sometimes there's so many students interested in a program that there have been instances where they had to bring on a third faculty advisor to be able to help out. Because obviously there are rules about, chaperoning duties. How many students is it reasonable for these two faculty leaders to kind of keep an eye on? Now, of course, we trust our students to be adults, but sometimes things come up. Last summer when we were there, we had a student who became ill while we were traveling. And so we ended up having to try to navigate and figure out medical services in London. And of course, that's something that as a faculty leader, like you have paperwork about that, right? Like here's your medical insurance policy, but in your head, you categorize that as, oh, that'll never happen to us. We'll be fine. But we had to figure it out. We had to get prescription medicine and these kinds of things. And so it was nice that there was another faculty member there to kind of help with that. So, maybe I'm going to go with the student to the doctor. You see about these other students here. And so when the group gets really big and unwieldy, it would be very beneficial to have a third faculty leader. So sometimes they do that.
Absolutely. Now, here on campus and other Alamo colleges and universities at large, they do have students who are dual credits. Is there a minimum age to travel? Can we have a 17, 16-year-old?
No. So
is it 18 or what?
It's 18. And I just found that out the sad way. I have a dual credit student who has taken several classes with me, very diligent, hardworking student. And the student was interested. And I said, oh, let me see about that. And they said, no, We cannot authorize you to take a 16-year-old to another country. They've got to be 18.
Right.
So of course I lobbied, I'll sign. If the parents will sign, will you let it go? But I think legal said, no, they have to be
Right.
18.
And to me, I was hoping it would be something that we can work around, because a lot of times what happened is when a 16, 17-year-old's, taking college courses, he should be kind of elevating to a college, not us kind of downsizing to a high school environment. So
Right.
I thought that would be go around that notion. But sometimes these things do happen, because we do all teach dual credits, and sometimes there are and sometimes the adult inside those young students, they come in and say, how come I cannot do this? There's a stipulation or requirement that actually hinders me from enters into this experience. But I mean,
Yeah.
I understand the security, and then the safety of the students is also has to take some kind of consideration as well. So I do.
Yeah, I think it just comes down to liability. And of
Right.
course, I'm like a dog with a bone. Well, what if, is there a document? Could the parent sign a document? So I don't know. Perhaps if we keep pestering them about it, maybe they will be able to create an opportunity for students to do that. But right now, legal says they have to be 18.
Okay. Now I have a couple of questions. I'm going to talk about like the trip itself, like England, and then how rewarding it was for you and for the other students. But before I ask that question, some other, they call it also study abroad. In our case, it has to be in the summer. It has to be taught related to a course that's being taught. But also, I hear a lot of students in other institutions in other states as well. They actually go into a study abroad program, and it's long term. Like, I want to go a year to Spain and learn Spanish, or go to Costa Rica and understand the culture, and it's kind of part of the academics, but it's a longer stint, and usually at that point it's not as part of a group, it's part of one individual. Do we have that here, or we do not?
We do not yet, but that is certainly something that international programs at district is interested in pursuing. We have a really robust international program, and they are always looking for these special opportunities for our students. So when we are in London, our trip, we actually work with a company in London, and they are called Anglo Educational Services. And so they help us to plan our itinerary and to lock down our student housing and to kind of do the logistics on the ground. So when we get there, we have a meeting with them. They kind of just hand over everything to the faculty. Like, here's all your tickets. Here's your train passes. Here's everything. It's wonderful. But having a relationship with them, I follow them on social media, and I see that they do help to facilitate those other kinds of programs. So I see that particularly for universities, there are a lot of options to do like a whole semester abroad, or like you said, maybe a whole academic year abroad. Very often they host programs there where students will maybe take coursework for half a semester, and then the other half of the semester is like an internship. So there are lots of different kinds of programs. And I think the Alamo colleges are really interested in seeing how many of those programs we could be a part of, for sure.
Okay. Now, sometimes also the host country, what they do, they have a specific time where they can allow more than one group from different universities come in at the same time. Is that something that you have seen, where like you guys go there and then other groups from another university, another college, there at the same time, and you do like maybe combine activities together? Is that something that you have encountered or not?
We have not ever combined activities, but I do know that there are other groups often in London when we are, especially because we work with Anglo. They have one really nice feature that they have is they have like a workroom where faculty and students can come, and it's air conditioned, which is hard to come by in London, and it has Wi-Fi. And so students can kind of hang out there and get some schoolwork done if they want to, or just kind of rest and decompress. And there are other students from other programs sometimes who are there. So that creates a really nice opportunity for students. Sometimes they're American and sometimes they're from somewhere else altogether. So that's kind of nice. So we have been lucky to be able to have those kinds of discussions here and there, just because we have that shared study space at Anglo.
Okay. Now, I want to just a little bit talk a few minutes about the experience itself from your point of view, and also students. I'm sure when the students come back, they have to kind of have a reflection on this, maybe verbal, maybe something that has to be written, part of the requirements, part of the course as well. But one thing I want you to walk me through individually and also with your students. What are some of the things that the benefits of traveling to a different country? Because a lot of times when you mention certain countries, certain things comes to one's mind. And a lot of times by being there, it maybe enhances those kind of predetermined, notions about it, or it might change everything about it. Like I've never been to England personally, but everybody, when they talk about England, jokingly, maybe, maybe not, they talk about like the food
Mhm.
that it's not really that great compared to other countries. So is that just walk us through that particular and also other things similar to that? How divorced is that from reality?
Yeah. So the notion about the food is both true and false in
Okay.
London. The English food. So if you go to a pub, and we always try to make sure that students at least once go and get, the English breakfast, have these weird like pork and beans and whatever for breakfast.
Right.
Go and have bangers and mash at least once, like try it out. And truly for an American palate, it's not fantastic. But the other thing that London has to offer is that there are so many different cultures there. So
Right.
if you are adventurous, you can try like any kind of food you can imagine there. And, maybe you like it, maybe you don't, but you tried it. So we tried many different ethnic restaurants while we were there. And very often it was super surprising. So for me, like I'm a huge fan of Indian food. I like to go to Indian restaurants here in San Antonio. It's probably my favorite type of cuisine. And so we
So
tried, well, I
England is
was,
perfect for that.
oh,
So
I love it. I tried
yeah.
several different Indian restaurants and found very quickly that perhaps some of the Indian food we get here is a little bit Americanized, perhaps in the same way Chinese food is.
Right.
And so we tried different dishes, and sometimes you might see something on the menu that sounds familiar, like tikka, but that may not be just like a regular tikka masala that you're used to. It's a little bit different. And so it's really exciting to try the food. But of course, yeah, I would say the English food leaves a little to be desired.
Right. Because
But
every time they allude to that in movies, like, oh, we're going to England and it's going to be like fish and chips, 24
yes,
hours a day.
yeah, yeah. Well, several of our students really liked the fish and chips. I was not impressed, but some students got that several times. But really, that is something that I have been really pleased to see that students are really adventurous about. So they are willing to go try it out. In London, there's a place called the Borough Market. And it's a crazy place. I don't like to go there because there's too many people. It makes me feel really nervous. But at the Borough Market, there are all these little stands where you can get different types of food. And we had several students who, anytime they had like a free afternoon or a free evening, they went down there to eat. And so that was really cool. And then, of course, in the morning, they would share like all these weird things that they ate, talk about it, and tell one another, give recommendations. And so that was really cool. And I think that like just the food is a really good example of the kind of things that you get to try out about another culture and really do
Sure.
test those stereotypes that you might have in your head
Absolutely.
about the culture itself. So that's a good experience.
Okay. Now, aside from the food experience, I mean, just gonna give us a sample of overall reflection about England from a student's perspective. Like they walked in knowing certain things and they walked away. What is the benefits, the tangible benefits from them traveling after the fact?
So in my class, like I said, I teach English. And so I have like obviously very direct, obvious overlap between these places that we're visiting
Sure.
and the content that we're looking at in class. So I'll pick on Shakespeare for a second. I always teach Shakespeare. I teach Shakespeare in composition 2 and in British literature. And it is something that is very difficult for students. The language barrier is hard. It's hard to sit down and read Shakespeare. I
Sure.
think usually I can break through and get students to maybe appreciate it a little bit when we are talking about Shakespeare here. But when you go over there and when you are able to, we take a day trip from London, we take a bus, picks us up and takes us to the town of Stratford-upon-Avon, where Shakespeare lived. And so we actually tour his home, and we get to tour the elementary school where he went, and, really walk down the streets where he walked. And that changes things. That makes this a much more real experience. And then there are so many opportunities to see Shakespeare plays acted out while you're there. And we've had several different experiences with that. The first time I went, we in Stratford-upon-Avon saw the Royal Shakespeare Company do a production of King Lear.
Oh, wow.
It was absolutely phenomenal. And that same trip, one of the evening excursions we did when we had some free time, we found a local ballet in London that was putting on a production of Romeo and Juliet, and we went to it for like $12, and some students came with us. That was also exceptional. And then last year, we went to the Globe Theatre, the reconstructed Globe Theatre in London, and saw a production of Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream. Really fantastic. And so I bring up all these different examples because in my class, I have my students do sort of reflection journals as a discussion board.
Sure.
And so, of course, they've taken, quizzes over these Shakespeare plays that we've read, but now they're going to reflect on the experience. And to hear what students have to say, how their opinion of Shakespeare changed when they learned more about his life, when they got to visit these places where he walked, and then, of course, being able to see these people act out these plays, it is extraordinary, the difference. They really see this literature differently because of the experience. And to me, that is the most valuable aspect of study abroad. It's exciting, as you well know, as a professor, it is really cool when you can see students get excited about this subject matter that you're excited about. And that's not always an easy thing to do, but I have seen study abroad afford that opportunity to me in a way that I've never had before in a classroom. And that's really exciting.
Okay. And overall, reflection as well. How are Americans perceived in England? I mean, when you guys are traveling, obviously, when you do the official, things, you're going to be probably, dealt with in a very professional manner. But when you do things on your own, as just exploring the town and everything else, how are Americans viewed and treated in England?
I mean, treated fine. You're not going to have any trouble, I don't think. But many, you get a little side eye. A group of Americans on a tube, in the tube is a thing to behold. Americans, especially Texans, we don't know how public transport works. We're not,
Right.
Maybe on the program.
We stick out like a sore thumb everywhere we go.
Yes, we're not fast to enter the tube. We're not fast to get off the tube. We're very loud when we talk to one another, and we're more friendly than Londoners are.
Absolutely.
So, just the things that maybe come naturally to us, like walking down a hallway and you come face to face with someone and you don't know them, but you smile and like say hi. That's not a thing in London. And so when you do these things, of course, no one's going to be ugly to you about it, but they are going to kind of give you this look, and they're thinking Americans.
Right. Because
But
a
of
lot of
course,
times, I lived in China for like two years.
oh, wow.
And then at some point, somebody was talking. It was the guy who says good morning to everyone. It's like air turf law. It's like, I'm sorry. Like,
Yes.
I'll try to tune that.
us.
Like, I'll try to make it say it once a day or something.
Yes.
Hi.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a lot of preconceived notions from their perspective as well.
Right. And so we do have meetings before we go. We're talking to students about, what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. London is easy to navigate. But for other programs that are going to other cultures, it's, really important to talk about, like, what's an appropriate outfit to wear? What recommendations do we have about the way you approach people and the things that you say to people? So we do definitely have those conversations. But when you get on the ground, sometimes you're just shocked at how American you are, and you can see it, right? Like, it's like looking into a mirror.
Absolutely.
When you see the way people look at you when you're talking really loud in a restaurant, and
Right.
bring it down a notch.
Absolutely. Now to get to the fun part, which is doing the actual traveling and then being involved in these academic and non-academic activities in the country that you go to, it seems like there's a lot of meticulous, detailed, oriented job that has to take place behind the scene. How far in advance you have to plan a trip?
Okay, so at least a year.
Okay.
So the semester before, so last year we traveled in June, so June of 2023. We had already proposed the summer 2024 trip in April of 2023. So
Okay. Oh,
you're
wow.
a whole year ahead of time. The approval process is long. Obviously, because there's so much liability and there's a lot of expense that goes into this. Of course, we are, when we're doing study abroad, we're going to teach a class with only 10 students in it, maybe. And that is obviously much lower than the amount of, students we usually have 30 in a class. So that's something that, the colleges have to sign off on that because they really are sort of taking a hit. And so a year ahead of time, you are already working to get this program approved. And that approval process, as I said, includes, your dream itinerary, and includes everything you can think of that might cost something. And so all of that takes forward planning. So you get this initial approval, and then as the prices start coming in for things, you are adjusting as you go. So right now, we're still in the fall semester. We're going to travel again next summer. We're hosting the same program, summer 2024. We have already been approved last semester, and now we're really getting to the nitty-gritty, looking to see how much do flights cost this year, because that fluctuates a lot. And so this year the flights are really expensive. So we needed to go back to our itinerary and say, what could we cut any of these things out? Could we do this in a little bit more economical of a way? So we're making some of those changes. And then, of course, every year you go, if you get to repeat the program from the faculty perspective, you can tweak things to make it a little bit better. Sometimes you plan an excursion and it falls flat. We do several walking tours while we're in London. And one of the walking tours we did was an educational walking tour, like the history of education in London. And it just, we thought it was interesting. The faculty did, but the students, I think, were a little bit exhausted. It was walking. It was a hot day, and they just it did not resonate with them. So that's something that, even though we felt like it was a good opportunity, that's something that we cut from the itinerary the next year. So we're making those kinds of changes, as we go. But then also while you're there, sometimes something presents itself and you make this plan sort of on the fly. So, there is some ability to make some changes to that itinerary as things present themselves.
Okay. Now you did mention the pricing. So the pricing, it has a lot of stipulations that goes into it, meaning that it depends on the destination. Also, it depends on the number of students participating in the process and the number of faculty. So it's not a standard, like it's $2,000 or whatever the case might be. So if you're traveling to England, it may differ. If you're traveling to Brazil or Argentina.
Right.
Now you did,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, if you just think about like housing, for
Yeah.
instance, that's something that it really matters not only how many students are in your group, but what is the breakdown of males and females, because you have to have separate living quarters.
Sure.
That is a rule in the Alamo colleges. So if you end up having, say you have a group of 10 people and 8 of them are female and 2 of them are male, then that's going to make the price a little bit more. Because there's a separate apartment just for these 2 people, and then these 8 are kind of split, so all of those things figure in, and you have to be adaptable to that, to keep the price low for students.
Yeah, I hope that doesn't happen very often, because let's say if it's like a breakdown is like 9-to-1 gender wise, everybody will be looking at that one individual. So thank you for raising up the price,
and also hope you enjoy your apartment to yourself. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, this is not fair. Yes. Now you did kind of take care of my next question. We are coming to talking about this for 45 minutes. It seemed like 2 minutes, honestly. You did mention that you are in the process of getting approved again for summer of 2024. You're going to England as well, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so the 2024 program is already available We have right now, I think 9 students who have shown some interest in our program. So we're hoping that we get enough students to make the program next summer. Students have already begun applying for scholarships. There is a national scholarship called the Gilman Scholarship, and that is just a national scholarship for students who are interested in study abroad.
Okay.
Then we have a local international education scholarship through the Alamo colleges. Those applications are already open. So priority deadline for Alamo colleges students to apply for a program in 2024 summer. Priority deadline is December 8th, 2023. And then, so they'll go ahead, the international education program will go ahead and check out all those applications, admit students to the programs, over winter break. And then when we come back at the start of the spring semester, students still have the opportunity to apply to a program up until February. And then after that, we will know how many students are going, who's in the programs. The students will find out if they've been accepted, if they've got scholarships. And then the real planning, like the nitty gritty starts happening, where we are, the faculty leaders are actually talking with our students, talking about really specifics, like what do you need to think about packing? What about plugging in your appliances? What are you going to do about a laptop? Those kinds of things.
Okay. Now you did mention that it's for Alamo colleges for all the students. It's not just NLC students, correct?
No, it's district wide. And so even though for our particular program, both of the faculty members who are going are faculty at NLC, our students will be from all of the Alamo colleges.
And then obviously NLC students, they are eligible to go and then join other programs.
Yes.
Okay, there's one thing also I was going to ask, do as a school or as a district, do we have a limit on how many trips do we take? Like for instance, next summer, you guys are, hopefully it will make, and we go into England. Can another faculty also propose another trip during the same time? Or is it going to be one trip at a time every year? Can we do multiple trips?
There's a lot of people going a lot of different places. The people at the international education, like how they make it through the months of May to July when all these different programs are traveling, like they must not ever sleep at all, because we're very lucky that they are there to support us all the time. So if something happens and you need to call someone from the district, I mean, last summer I made a call, it was daytime in London. It was 2 a.m. here and they answered. So they are on it to help us all the time. So many programs traveling in those months and in those summer months, particularly.
Okay. And then that's going to be maybe the last question. I'm going to give you the chance to do like a final reflection about the whole thing. Can somebody, a faculty or a student, bring someone who's not NLC association? Like, can somebody bring a spouse or a significant other, a brother or sister?
No, unfortunately not. In fact, even for faculty, no, the answer is no. And I proposed, like when I went the first time, my mother and my mother-in-law really wanted to go. And I said, well, what if they pay the program fee? Like they can go, they'll be super helpful. And they said, no, they've got to be a student. So you have to be enrolled in the classes. That's what it comes down to. Someone cannot travel for study abroad if they are not enrolled in both of the courses associated with that program.
Okay, so you either have to be teaching a course or taking a course. Those are the only two things.
Yes,
so maybe
you can't come, Mohsen.
Yeah, okay. Maybe I just enrolled in that course, just want to learn about that. Yeah, okay, that's great. Well, I really learned a lot because a lot of times you see, a pamphlet or a picture, a poster, study abroad, and somebody is riding a camel and somebody's trying whatever it is. It's like, wow, that looks like a lot of fun, and it is, right? But there's a lot of planning that goes into it, behind the scene. It takes like a really honestly, like more than 1 year in terms of you have to promote the program, you have to recruit the students, you have to give the plan, and then connect with the country that you go into. So it really is a lot of work to kind of get it done. And I understand why it's not just for a matter of convenience. I mean, it makes a lot of sense for you to actually choose England as a good destination because it perfectly fits. There's no language barrier. It just speaks a volume about the subject matter that you do teach, Shakespeare and everything else involved with that, and also the fact that you've done it, so it kind of makes it worthwhile. Now, just outside the box, if you have to do a trip and it's not England,
Mhm.
where would you want to be? Where would you go if it's not England?
So of course, it should be someplace you traveled before. So I
Please
think
don't say Canada, okay?
no, I have been there. I'm good.
Okay.
Um, I think if I was very bold and brave, I would suggest Africa. As you know, I had the opportunity to go to Africa last summer on a separate type of voyage. And I think if there was a way to work that out, I would really love to see students have that opportunity because culturally it's so different. I see that there actually is a trip going. There's a study abroad group going to Africa next summer, and I'm excited to talk to that professor and see how things go. Obviously, much different considerations for a trip like that. So that may be something that I would always be a little bit hesitant to do. I think a more reasonable place, I would perhaps pick Germany. Germany is a place that I've traveled in quite a bit. I've been to a lot of the major cities, and I think even when you don't speak German, it is an easy place to navigate. I think it would be doable, and it would be really, really neat. When I start thinking about it, I think of all the different types of literature that we could look at, particularly like Holocaust literature, things like that. I think that could be really, really awesome. So.
Okay, so Africa and Germany. Okay, that sounds good. Which is actually, it's like perfectly aligned because it really kind of, hopefully it will set us up to do another podcast with you down the line as you and I have a casual discussion regarding that. And we can then, make that for your trip, documenting, it's a different capacity as well,
Yes.
is your trip to Africa as well
Yeah.
last summer. So I would love to, at some point, set that up and explore that.
Yeah, that
And
would be
then see
great.
what we could do. Yeah, thank you so much, Angie. Thank you so much for taking the time. And then, is
Yeah.
there any last advice for someone, for a faculty or a student, to join a study abroad?
I think my advice is the same for both. You should do it. It is sometimes difficult, sometimes uncomfortable, sometimes takes you out of your comfort zone. The whole application process for students, the whole, setting up the program for faculty, but it is so worth it. You will never forget it. The trip that you take, the first time we went, we had some students who actually got engaged while we were in London at Windsor Castle. Like those kinds of things are just so awesome to have been a part of, and just really things that are so unforgettable. And it really is an economical way to do it. So I would say to anyone, go see the world. And this is a great way to do it, for sure.
Okay. Thank you so much, Angie. I really appreciate that. And then thank you all for tuning in for this Polytalk EDU episode regarding study abroad. And then in this case, the destination was England. By Professor Angie. So thank you so much, Angie, and I appreciate it. I look forward to recording another session with you rather soon. Again, as I mentioned, regarding Africa. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.